Hey, what's going on, everybody out there? Jamie Laszlo here from Sea of Tranquility, and we have a review crew episode for you here tonight. It's Saturday night. We're recording during the day on Saturday. It's a beautiful day to hang out with my buddies here and talk about albums. What we're going to talk about, you know, albums come and go in our lives. We listen to a lot of new music here. That's why we're on this show. Some albums stick to the wall. Some albums over time kind of fade away into the collection. And then we maybe get reminded, maybe 5, 10 years ago or later, man, that was a good album. I haven't listened to that forever. But we're going to talk about the albums from the 2010s that have stuck with us all this time. We're halfway into the 2020s. So, what albums from the last decade are we still listening to a lot now and still seem fresh and great 5 years into the 2020s? So let's introduce everybody here. We got Rick Labonte. What's going on?
How you
Scott
doing,
Barry.
guys?
How you doing?
Hey,
Nick Franco, Ryan
What
Scow.
up?
They were up late. They went to an Iron Maiden cover band last night. They played for 4 hours. So you guys probably got home at like what, 3:30 in the morning or something?
Two.
Two. So I respect your sacrifice for showing up early for our little taping this morning. And we got Alex Dudek. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
All right. Where are you
Good to
at?
be here. Thanks for having me again.
It looks familiar where you're at.
Where I'm at?
Yeah, and it looks like you could use a beer.
Well, I could always use a beer, Jamie.
Oh, hold on one second.
Oh, I don't know what's going on.
Something's happening. If you walk through that door,
There you go. There you go. Thanks, Jay. Oh, yeah. You want to go outside? You want to go outside?
What are you doing in my kitchen anyways?
Let's go outside. Good seeing you guys.
He got the beer, but he lost the phone.
I enjoy a good gimmick.
He lives 20 minutes away. I told him, why don't you just come over? We'll do a little bit, and then I'll put some burgers on the grill.
I don't think we've done that since Nick and Lynn showed up at Butch's house like
That's what I-
Yeah.
4 years ago or whatever. He just rolled
on
into
his
his living room.
Yeah, I was kind of copying.
No, it's good.
Inspired by that Hudson Valley Squares episode.
It's good.
All right, so
It's been long enough.
we're
Yeah,
gonna go around once.
statute of limitations. Good.
We're gonna go around once. I think everybody may have two albums. Everybody got 5 or 7 minutes. I don't care what you do with that 5 or 7 minutes. Talk about two albums, talk about one album, talk about 15 albums. I don't care. Rick, you'll go first.
Okay. I start with, well, obviously 2010 is a pretty good year for new music. And I had a list I looked at. I always, by the way, every CD that I log in and type it on my file for insurance, so anything ever happens, I can replace them. And so these two stood out really fast. That like when you talk 2010, and there was some competition, but I gotta be honest, it was the way he sold the whole show. What is the one that you keep coming back to since 2010? Like it's your, a daily supplement. You have to get your fix of this band every now and then. And that would be Black Country Communion for me. Their first album was the beginning, and I've collected ever since. And to me, they're still one of my favorite bands of the 21st century supergroup. The idea of personalities, respected careers come together and make a supergroup. It looks good on paper, doesn't always play out, but this does for this band. So who I'm Black Country Communion doesn't need an introduction, but Joe Bonamassa on guitar, Glenn Hughes on vocal and bass. You got Derek Sheridan on keyboard, and of course Jason Bottom on drums. I mean, this band is a complete package as far as everybody has their, high caliber musicians. And I got what I'm showing here because as a collector, as we know, as though I have all of them, right? The first album was re-released where you can get the making of this album and you can get the DVD of it. And so that's why I got the 2 CD version. For a lot of people, they only got the 1 disc. They didn't make many copies of this, but this is a great story of how the band got together. And it really comes down to, we were talking Iron Maiden. Kevin Shirley is the one that does the album today for Martin Birch. And he worked with Joe Bonamassa, and he had some special guests on some of his albums over the years. And he had Glenn Hughes come on one of the albums. But he kind of put this band together, knowing Derek, knowing Jason. And this was kind of a hand-picked done deal by Kevin Shirley and ended up being one of my favorite supergroups of the 21st century. So the first album is great. Every song catching. I don't know what to tell you other than like I don't have a favorite because they're all kick ass. They're like every song is a winner. And then she's got, shaking his head. He agrees. They do one cover, Medusa on here, but everything else is original song. And you would think they were famous already. The songs are so catchy. If I were to recommend one right off the hop, well, Black Country is a good one, or One Last Soul. Put that on and see the video and see them working, and you see why this is a band you want to follow. If you're not into them, I mean, the title kind of a throw off. Black Country is actually a community in UK where Robert Plant and Jason Bottom and Glenn Hughes were raised. And so people might what are they a country band? Are they a southern rock band? They're not like that at all. They're just a classic rock / modern band. They sound retro, but they sound modern at the same time. So kick-ass Black Country Communion. Next is a band that I discovered from this channel. Pete was talking about this one album was pretty much my gateway was Big Elf. Into the Maelstrom was the CD he was promoting, and it said Mike Portnoy played on it. And you guys know me with Dream Theater. I had to buy it just for that. And so when I discovered this album, I had to find out what the other, because it was so good. And the album I'm focusing on today from 2010 is Big Elf Hex. And when me and Pete ended up doing a ranking, this was his favorite album out of the handful that they have. And Big Elf today isn't functioning today because the keyboard player, Damien Fox, I believe the vocalist, the lead band leader, he's in the cult right now playing keys in that band as a touring band. So you might not get anything for a while. But anyway, this is the band I really like. And to describe what they're like, it's kind of in the wheelhouse of like the last show I was on. Ryan gave me this album, Black Hole, or recommended, and I had to buy it. It had a doom sound, and it had remind me of stuff of Master Reality of Black Sabbath. And even though it's not, way ahead of the doom trend today, this band was the same way. In the 90s, they put out a lot of albums that had this, what I think is kind of like it's not modern today because it's 2010, but back in the day in the 21st century, to me, it reminded me of like the Alice Cooper group mixed with, Badfinger and Beatles type of harmony. In fact, there are publishing companies called Evil Beatles Music. And you know what? It kind of sounds like that. It's got all these vocal harmonies and has this heavy psychedelic thing, doomy stuff into it, but it's catchy as hell. It has so many ear candy melodies and harmonies that you can't help like it. So it kind of like, it's like a stewing pot of T-Rex, the glam rock of the 70s and Alice Cooper band meet the modern trend. You know what I mean? Like, over the years we had, from Alice Cooper, you had the Marilyn Manson and a few other people. This guy goes in with the top hat, and he kind of reminds me of the ringleader of a circus or something like that. Let me introduce a show. Every album feels like you're walking into a program. He could be the guy that be introducing monster den movies like Creature Feature at night, during the Saturday when we were kids, watching, the vampire, what was his name? Sir Ghastly Graves or whatever. Somebody that we can introduce some cool movies. He's had that Vincent Price kind of personality, this person. When you see him with the top hat and then playing on the keyboard. So it's kind of cool to watch. But that's not what sold me. What sold me was the songs. And in this album in particular, there's some that you might want to give me a song to hear. I would say Painkillers or Sunshine Suicide or Rock and Roll Contract kind of give you a summary of the whole band. But like black country community like this band, you have to hear the whole album to really get the full depth of the band. It's just like Alice Cooper's group, Billion Dollar Babies. It'd be a shame if you only heard I Love the Dead and not hear the whole thing, right? It's that kind of band where it's a lot of theatrical moments in the album, and so it's a good show. It's a good show to listen to. It almost like you want to start it from the beginning to the end to get the whole summary of the band. So I know it's long-winded, but it's a lot to say about these two bands if you never heard of them. But this was a sea of tranquility discovery for me. Thanks to Pete Pardo, I got into them. We did a ranking. If you want to check that out, his favorite was this one. Mine was Sheet of the Gallows. But they're so damn close. Every album's a winner.
All righty. All right, Scott.
All right, sir. So my first pick is from an artist that is a bit of a Renaissance man. He sings, he writes music and lyrics. He's a multi-instrumentalist, guitar, keyboards, bass. He produces. He's remixed a slew of classic prog albums from the 70s and 80s, but he's probably best known for being the front man of the UK prog band Porcupine Tree. But today I'm going to talk about one of his great albums under his own name. My pick is Hand Cannot Erase,
Steven Wilson.
the fourth solo album by Steven Wilson. It's from 2015. And they were Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson. I didn't really discover them until about 5 years ago. But once I really got it, once I discovered their music, I really got into it. I was originally going to pick Raven That Refused to Sing from 2013, which is often hailed as his best solo album, but I decided that one's kind of already been discussed a lot on the channel, and I don't think Hand quite gets nearly as much attention, and I think it's almost as good as Raven, and some days I might say it's even better, the better album of the two. He's really riding on a creative peak at this time in his solo career, I'd say. It's sort of a concept album. It's inspired by the story of a young London woman who died in her apartment in 2003. And when they found her like 2 years later, surrounded by undelivered Christmas presents. Nobody had found her before that. But the lyrics, they kind of deal with themes of modern city life, withdrawal, isolation, ultimately death. Musically, Steven brings his A game as he always does. It's music that serves the themes in these songs, and I give him a lot of credit for not just going into the studio after Raven and cranking out Raven 2. He took a gamble, staying away from something that worked so well, and he tried something different. I wouldn't say this is worlds apart from Raven, but it's more atmospheric, more morose, and it isn't afraid to go heavy in some places while going more textured and melodic in other places. Opener, First Regret, fades into this melancholy piano, which serves as a 2-minute intro to 3 Years Older, and that brings some real heavy guitar and majestic keyboards. Slows the pace right about the time Steven's vocals kick in. A lot of zigzags, ups and downs in this track, and it's just off to a great start. Title track, Hand Cannot Erase, has this great uplifting feel to it, and even seems like a little pop leaning at times. Has a really cool bass line, but I could imagine hearing this on the radio if something this good actually made it onto the radio these days. Perfect Life begins to move into a darker direction. The instrumentation is sparse with some atmospheric vocals from Steven. Routine, it has a sense of menace about it, some soaring guitar from Steven, and he shares vocals with a female singer, Ninette Tayeb. And Ninette's vocals really elevate the song to just otherworldly heights. I would say the heaviest guitar playing on this album is on Home Invasion. And that also features some cool organ, also courtesy of Steven. Kicker of a track, my personal favorite on the album. Regret number 9, great instrumental, starts out heavy on keyboards, but transitions about midway through to guitar dominance. Transients, good mid-tempo acoustic-driven track with keyboards and mellotron. Ancestral starts out softly, but gradually builds in intensity over its epic 13.5-minute runtime. As the intensity builds, the guitar gets more discordant and jagged sounding. Kind of reminds me a little of Robert Fripp from King Crimson. Just great track. Happy Returns brings the proceedings to a close, some melodic but soaring guitar and more atmospheric vocals from Stephen, which leads into Ascendant Here On, and that features choir vocals and beautiful piano as it fades out, kind of a shorter track, somber but uplifting. Yeah, that's my first one, Stephen Wilson. Second, uh, my second pick, it's a band I've been a fan of since I was 15. They were one of my favorite bands throughout high school. See if you can guess who they are. Hint, hint. I always loved the earlier part of their catalog. I stopped buying new albums from them in the late 80s, but I returned to their music around 2010, just in time for the release of their 19th and final studio album in 2012. And of course, the band is Rush. Album is Clockwork Angels. Uh, I was pretty psyched for this album when it was released. My wife had just bought us Rush tickets for me for Father's Day, and the album was released soon after. I might have built it up in my mind a little too much because I remember initially being a little disappointed upon first listen, and but I was determined to get acquainted with this album before the concert, and I had about 5 months to get there because the concert wasn't until December. Um, but so I got familiar with the songs, and they did get grow on me over time. Several months later, as the show approached, I was wondering if they still had what it took. This was the first time I'd seen them since 1984, and I did have my doubts, but my fears were soon laid to rest when I saw them. They had just lost none of their power, and I saw no signs of their musicianship slipping at all. Uh, Concert was just a great mix of songs from throughout their long career, with a good many songs from Clockwork Angels, and I was glad I had taken the time to actually get familiar with those songs. There's just something about being there, hearing them live, and it just really helped those songs resonate and sound even better, which is what a concert is supposed to do, right? Doesn't always. Uh, I believe they did 9 of the 12 songs from that album in that concert. There's a good bit of heaviness here. One of the reasons I stopped listening or stopped buying new Rush albums was in the late 80s, Alex's guitar seemed to be less prominent in the mix, and the albums were becoming a lot more keyboard dominated, around the time of Power Windows, Hold Your Fire, etc. But that is not the case on this album at all. First 5 songs, all great, heavy, up front in the mix guitar work from Alex. Um, yeah, I mean, Caravan, BU2B, Clockwork Angels, The Anarchists, Carnies, all have just killer guitar from Alex on those songs. And the album is all the better for it. Of course, Geddy and Neil, they're both delivering the goods as well. And but when don't they, right? One thing about Rush, they always had this very high level of musicianship on their albums, and even the ones I like less. But yeah, Clockwork Angels, no exception. They're killing it on here. I like how they kind of slow things down on the 6-track Halo event, and that brings in some nice acoustic guitar from Alex. And I like his acoustic guitar almost as much as I like his electric guitar. 7 Cities of Gold has a nice killer bass line from Geddy. The only one on here I'm not that crazy about is Wish Them Well. It just seems to sort of wreck the flow a little, very repetitious, and not quite up to the level of the rest of the album, in my opinion. But the closer, The Garden, is just great. Very uplifting, more beautiful acoustic guitar opening, transitions to a more soaring electric, and Geddy's vocals, best vocals on the album. Great closer. I don't know if they planned this to be their final album, but regardless, I would say they went out on a high note. It's hard to think of many bands that had that long and strong a run, mostly, uh, and with the same lineup. Yeah, they had John Rutsey on the first album, and respect to him for getting things started, but I would say they really became their best selves when Neil joined, right? And I completely understand why Getty and Alex didn't continue as a band after Neil's passing. It just wouldn't have been the same. And he is sorely missed and irreplaceable. Clockwork Angels. Get it
I have
if
it
you
on
don't.
vinyl, and it sounds even better on vinyl. It's a 2011 pressing than the CD. I don't know why.
2011?
When did the album come out? 2011?
It was 2012.
Oh, 2012. Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
It's a 2012 pressing.
I always remember because 2112,
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
like the 100-year pre-anniversary, sort of.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
That's a
the
good
vinyl
album.
sound. That's my favorite Rush album. Anything post Signals. That's my favorite one of all their things that did post Signals.
It's definitely up there
it's
for
good.
me. It's definitely a top 10 Rush album for me. I mean, yeah, after Grace Under Pressure, like I said, they're a little hit and miss for me. There's some good stuff in there, but yeah, that one, like I said, there's just that one track I'm not that crazy about. I could have lost that and it wouldn't have ruined anything.
I miss that.
It clocks in at over an hour anyway.
Yeah, you get a lot of music from them.
Yeah.
I like both of those albums you pointed out. I listened to them quite a bit, and but I thought the assignment was 2010, not the decade. But that's awesome. I'm glad you did that because that would have made my job harder. It was hard enough picking the best of 2010. People don't realize that 21st century.
It was hard, Rick. It was hard to narrow it down
Yes,
to just
it
two
was.
albums, but I think I picked ones that I
Those are good. They're good.
It's better than Snakes and Arrows, and Snakes and Arrows is better than Vapor Trails. So those three albums just kind of got better and better.
I would agree with that. I mean, I
I
like
agree with
all of
that.
those, but yeah, there's a progression there for sure.
That is an uncontroversial statement. I would agree to.
Yeah.
All right, Nick.
You on?
Greetings. There, I just had to
Greetings.
unmute myself. All right.
Did you get any sleep?
I did. I did. As Ryan could tell you, I think I touched the Holy Spirit last night, which was Iron Maiden. And they were playing so well. So yeah, I was going a
Maybe you
little.
dropped acid.
Not the real
Not that I
Iron
know
Maiden.
of.
I just want to. We saw a cover band who was a really good cover band.
Yeah,
Really,
I've
really
seen them
good.
before, and I know they're really good. It's just it was years ago that I saw them.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I went crazy, had a good time. But yeah, I
It
got
must
some
have been
sleep.
great if you guys hung in there for 4 hours.
Yeah, they were pushing the 4 hour mark.
It felt
with
like
the,
it flew by. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, we know, I'm like, man, I know a lot of Maiden songs I can sing. Like, wow. So,
Oh yeah, dude. I'm surprised I can speak right now.
I know my voice. But anyways,
No, it was great. It was awesome. Good time. So, yes, I understood the assignment here. But the first album that I'm going to talk about actually came out about 4 days before the time period that we
I
are
like it.
choosing. Yeah. So I decided I'd let it slip in. Because it was released on December 26th of 2009, but it really didn't even get like pressings and vinyl till 2012. It didn't really get released till 2010. Um, and that is, of course, the mysterious Ukrainian band Nocturnal Mortem. And this album is it's called The Voice of Steel.
That's in English. You got to say it.
I cannot, yeah. Everything thankfully there's a lot of translations because everything they do primarily is in their native tongue. Um Nocturnal Mortem has achieved well, first, what are they? They're, I guess by definition, you could say they're a symphonic folk black metal band, which, as Ryan can tell you, that's like, when I hear that, I perk up. But as with some of this like Viking themed or pagan themed music, there's a lot of people a lot of like metalheads, especially metalheads into black metal, that will not be so quick to like this style. But this is one of those bands, particularly one of those albums, where you'll hear a lot of people say, I don't like that flutes and pagan and all kinds of like folk instrument music, but I love this.
Mhm.
So
I'm
I
one
will,
of those people.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, you are exactly. I will say unapologetically, this is one of the greatest albums I've ever heard in my life. And it's a shame that, the band does toil in somewhat of obscurity, as, look at this nice, accessible, easily read, logo that they have. But so Nocturnal Mortem comes from Kharkiv Oblast in Ukraine, um, and it doesn't take an ear to the grindstone to know that Ukraine is a beleaguered and war-torn country. Um, these guys were always very proud of being from Ukraine. So obviously this album was written well before this current conflagration, but it is steeped in wonderful pride for their nation, for their history. And as is common with these types of albums, we're talking about like a lot of the myths and legends from Slavic history, particularly the god Perun, who forges weapons, very similar to the Norse stuff and everything like that. But obviously they have their own history. Um, so all of that aside, what kind of music are we talking about? Well, we're talking about songs that can be very long. They have like they top like 10, 11 minutes on some of the songs. Now fans like us, we're not intimidated by that. We love Rush, we love Iron Maiden, and these guys, they fulfill the moments pass on these songs. They're not just like blasting at you. In fact, it's very melodic. I can
Very melodic, that album.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
and I can
really
point.
like rich and like
Yeah, well, the list of instruments used. This album took years to record. The list of extra musicians is huge that they brought in. Um, for example, one gentleman that played on this album, Alexi, he plays keyboards and folk instruments. And then if you look at what those are, the flute, we know what that is, but then something called the sopilka, the ocarina, the kotsa, and the zitra. I couldn't tell you what those are, I'd like to look into it deeper because whatever they put together, it's melded so well. The bass player on this album, Vrolak, I'm not even gonna say his real name. Um, that dude is just he's up there at the level of like, okay, you're listening to, you can hear the bass guitar in it, and so there's a proggy heart to this going on. So all those, if you guys listen to Therion, if you're familiar with Therion, they're proggy like neoclassical era. You got a little bit of that here, but there's more of a darker undertone. The lead vocalist definitely has that black metal shriek going on, but there's a lot of clean vocal background effects. And I mean, I could, every song on here is phenomenal. If I had to parse out like the best song is the eponymous of their nation, the song Ukraine.
yeah, I was gonna say the fourth song is the chorus in that song.
The chorus in that song is one of the best constructed choruses I've ever heard. Your fist in the
really
air
is.
gonna be like, oh my God. I can't say it because they sing in Ukrainian, but yeah, it's so moving. It's such a moving album and this is a beautiful thing about, I guess, I mean, mostly metal, although I'm sure other types of music this exists. But when you don't, it's amazing when you don't have to understand what they're saying to feel what they're saying and to really have it move you. So I recommend this album, Voice of Steel, to anybody who likes everything from Rush to Immortal to Therion. It's one of the greatest albums. It really is. I have I go to a metal fest in Finland every year, and I've gone 4 years in a row coming out of the pandemic, and each of the first 2 years, their band name, they were billed to play, and unsurprisingly, because they still live in Ukraine, they're not allowed out of Ukraine. So whether these guys and their band members change a lot. There's like a very tight knit scene coming out of that country, and I remember hearing that their studio or like where like near where they live was getting bombed, and they can't. The Ukrainian minister of whatever arts or however they do it just will not let them out of the country. I think the singer's gotten in trouble before in his life. Who knows? But it's wild to listen to this album, reflect back, and it's so Ukrainian, mythologically Ukrainian and about like their history. And it's so wild to consider that the men who contributed to this album may be fighting. We don't know. You just don't hear about it. So it definitely adds a modern geopolitical slant to the experience. But all that aside, these guys could work at a Crayola factory making kids' toys, and they would still be the most epic, um, beautifully constructed, long form, proggy folk metal that you'll ever want to hear. So that's my first one. And then moving off of that, I wore the shirt. I'd like to highlight a band called Tau Cross. For those of you who are familiar with Amoebix and the work of Rob Miller, Amoebix, has a special place in a lot of people's hearts because it's a difficult to pin down band that, so this guy comes from like a punk background. That music was punk, but it was so much more. It occupies that strange, like in the middle genre of I don't know what you would say, like pseudo industrial punk, post punk.
Crust punk was the that was the label they always got tagged with back then.
Yeah, which is, they just had a little bit more going on. It was a grittiness. So after Amoebix disbanded with their final album Sonic Mass, Rob the Baron Miller, who lived a very, austere lifestyle as like a punk rocker kind of guy, wound up moving to the Isle of Skye in the UK, where he became a swordsmith. That really can't be a cooler. I mean, it's just such a wild thing. So he puts together this band called Tau Cross, and that's the self-titled album that came out in 2015 here, and it came out on Relapse. I'm trying to get the glare away. So yeah, the scarecrow over the fields. So this album, Tau Cross, he employed on drums, he employed Michel Langevin, also known as Away, the brilliant, brilliant, brilliant drummer of Voivod, who Ryan has no idea anything about him.
Never heard of Voivod.
Never heard of the guy. So, you're starting out with a guy from Amoebix, and you're starting out with the drummer of Voivod. Then you have Andy Lefton and John Misery on guitars. So you're right away, you're dealing with, like, the word supergroup comes to mind. So what are we talking about here? So this album, it's a very straight ahead rocker. It has this very dark mythological undertone, but the music is very punk meets Motorhead or Killing Joke. I consider it loose, rocking, big simple riffs. But thematically it's very deep. He's talking about like these wild 16th, 17th century, you're hearing about the fields and the witches, and like it gives you that old school feeling of myth and legend. And I love that kind of stuff. But the second half of the album thematically gets more into, like a more punk resistance kind of thing. And they have songs like You People and We Control the Fear, The Lie, Prison. It doesn't mire itself in any sort of one, like, you're not thinking, oh, they're talking about one particular country or one particular leader. It's a general cyclical, what's the word? Like, you can apply it to anything, which is part of the genius of, like, when you make an album, like, I think Pink Floyd was always good at that. Like, you could, even though he was writing about specific, he was writing about, you could still apply those themes throughout time. And I think Tau Cross is very, very good at that. So you have these very singable, 3 to 4 minute, hooky, like Killing Joke-ish type songs with really, really moving lyrics. And one of my favorite songs on it is Sons of the Soil, which is, it's like a movie. And it's a 4 minute song, but it's about standing there during a military funeral, watching like your friend that you grew up with, and you're looking at his parents grieving, and he died in a war, and you used to be friends when you were young, and now he's rolling down the street. It's real depressing. I love depressing shit. So it really makes you look at it grabs you, this album, and I think it just, they've made albums since, they didn't quite reach this threshold. The band broke up a bit, and it just left Rob because there was some controversy and things which you're free to look at if you'd like. But just as a standalone album, it's one of the greatest fucking things I've ever heard, and I continually return to it, and I cannot recommend it more. It's certainly it's not just confined to some like punk genre. It's got something for everybody. Very different than the Nocturnal Mortem, but equally heartfelt and amazing. So those are my two albums.
I think the Killing Joke comparison is very. As soon as I heard them the first time, I'm like, That's who he reminded me of, and
Yeah.
not
You
like
got
in a
my
rip-off
attention
way,
with that.
just
Both
loosely,
of
like,
those
oh yeah,
sound
I can see
cool.
that.
Yeah. What was that, Scott?
Both of those sound really cool to me, Nick.
Yeah, the Tau Cross is cool. I mean, I picked it up originally because it was
Yeah.
Voivod, and obviously anything related to Voivod, I immediately buy just sight
Oh,
unseen. And I ended up, obviously I like Amebix a lot too, so it was an easy purchase, and I did really like that album.
Yeah,
I would have
he's
thought
got
they
a
were a Christian rock band because that's what the cross is, right? And
Yeah.
that the old faith and the Christian faith kind of meeting in the France, and that's where that symbol comes from. But
Hmm.
right.
interesting review, buddy.
Thank you. That took everything I had. This morning.
well done, sir.
Thanks.
All right. The hot ass sun is making its way over our umbrellas. I might have to figure something out. In the meantime, Ryan.
All right, so yeah, this was tough because I went back and I spent some time looking at like, well, how much music did I buy from like that decade? And I bought to use a mathematical term, a cosmic fuck ton of music over that 10-year period. Then I said, well, how many albums did I return to? And quite a few. There's quite a few albums that from that 10-year period that I still listen to very frequently. Sometimes weekly, some almost daily. So then I said, well, how many albums could I justifiably say, that could be my favorite album of that period? And I narrowed it down to like 6 or 7 albums. And I'm like, all right, I got to pick two Eddies. So if we had been picking one or five, I might have gone a different route. But because we're picking two, two of them are inextricably linked in many, many ways. So I'm like, I'm going to go with these two because these albums are very closely linked to the point of brotherhood because the two bands, the main figure in both bands, are brothers. So having said that, I'm going to go to Greece for the first album. So I'll go chronologically here. So the first band, so the two bands, I'll just talk about two at the same time because they are very closely linked, as you will find out in a second. The first band is a Greek black metal band, or started as black metal, called Zemil, and this is their 2013 album, Nikta. It's extremely reflective. You're not going to get the glare off it. I apologize. I believe it means night in Greece. The album, it's a cool gatefold. And there's the main guy, Demetrios Dorian, is the main and multi-instrumentalist on this band. So I'll say right off the fact, this is a 99% one-man band. They play live. They have a full live sound, obviously, full live lineup. But on the album, it's just really him. There it is. And I'll say, especially within the context of black metal, there's a lot of one-man bands. And usually, I mean, I love it, but a lot of times it's almost like the old cartoon image of the guy where like the bass drum on his back and the cymbals on his knees and the harmonica, It's like a lot going on. It's kind of like amateur hour. It's very endearing. You never tell. Like this guy, it's a one-man band for the most part, but you're talking musical talent here on like the level of King Crimson. Like this guy is a fucking master musician on all instruments. So even though he does everything, guitar, bass, drums, xylophone, keyboards, all these instruments, yeah, like this guy can play anything to like the level of like we can play like Rush, basically. He's that good. But he chooses to play mostly black metal. Uh, so these guys started in 92. Both bands started in 92. I'll just bring the other one in now. The other band is Agatus. This is their 2016 album, The Eternalist. So this is Zemil Nikta 2013, Agatus 2016. So these two bands are formed by brothers. So this is Chris Dorian. His nickname is The Dark, his black metal name, because it's black metal, you have a name. And this is Demetrios, and his nickname is Vorskath. But I'll just call them by their good proper names here. I don't want to use those. 2013, 2016. These guys both started in 92, and they both started as Greek black metal. And Greek black metal, compared to like Norwegian black metal or black metal from other parts of the world, has a pretty unique sound. It has a much warmer sound. I've always just kind of associated with like a Mediterranean sound. It doesn't have that cold, icy, like blasting sound you might associate with those bands. It's much warmer. But these guys obviously are a little bit more of the obscure names on there. And they started that way, right? Their earliest stuff, they kind of started that way. I picked up on them on their second albums, respectively, which started to evolve past that into a more multi-dimensional sound. So now we arrive, and these are respectively their third album. So they're not active bands here. In all those years, they've only managed to put out 3 albums each. They're not rushing to put stuff out every year, every other year. The biggest change, and this applies to both of these albums in different ways. They don't really sound a lot alike, despite the brotherhood and the connection of all that stuff. They started using way more prog, and when I say prog, it's pretty unique because when I say prog metal, most people think Dream Theater, band like that, or bands in that same realm, right? These guys, especially this album, it does it in a very unique way. Uh, the best way I could say is they take like old school 80s, like intense metal, like Bathory, Slayer, Possessed, and then he brings in all this like King Crimson and Eloy and like very authentic old school prog, and he smashes it together, and it does not sound weird at all. Like the way he does it, it's almost hard to believe that he could mix these two so well. There are songs on this album that are like 3 or 4 minutes and stay mostly within like the old school 80s. Like, they sound like Possessed, they sound like Bathory, harsh vocals. The production is immaculate, super warm, super clean. Like it could be off like a 70s Rush album. It is perfect, not too processed, not digital. Very, very good. The drum sound on this, I guess, despite this guy's instrumental talent. I think he's predominantly a drummer first and foremost. When the band plays live, that's who he plays drums, and he's got guys playing bass and guitar. Drum sound is perfect. And then there'll be these sections that come in like that could be off an Eloy album. That's actually he's the reason I heard of the band Eloy, one of my favorite prog bands, because we were talking about prog one time on Facebook years ago when he mentioned them. I'm like, this is new to me, this is going back a while. And I started listening to them. I'm like, I see where the influence comes on your sound. I heard the influence in Zemiel, that very kind of, which Eloy is, if you're not familiar with them as a prog fan, fucking amazing. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it's, they got songs on here like In the Arms of Hades and Pharaohs, which is these, not, it's respectively like 11 or 14-minute song, takes you on these expansive journey, these really cool prog breaks, and it goes back into thrash metal. And it never sounds awkward. It never sounds forced. The songwriting is immaculate. There's really cool choruses. It's just really cool. It's really cool. And for as much prog metal as there out in the world, I've never heard a band mix like actual authentic 70s prog and like no shit intense 80s metal in this way. It makes it sound very natural. It's not forced. It flows together. It's never like jarring, like, oh wow, you went from like a Slayer riff to like a King Crimson riff, and you're like, what the fuck? Like it never has that feel. It flows very smoothly. Yeah, just a really, really cool album. Their earlier stuff, as you go back in time, kind of gets a little more black metalish. But you have to go way back to the beginning of their discography to get like where it sounds like almost pure black metal because they've kind of been in this hybrid, weird, like they're in their own little world ever since. And I saw them earlier this year. I know Nick did as well. Had many conversations with Demetrios over the year. They really don't really give a fuck what anybody else does. They exist for themselves. They exist in their own little realm. And you can tell. You can listen to this and you're like, at this point, they don't sound like anybody. Despite the comparisons I've made. Uh,
Yeah, I talked to him for like 5 minutes and we talked about you.
Well, that's very heartwarming. I know this guy from New York. I could easily say this is my favorite album of the decade. In fact, when it came up, this was like one of two considerations. You're like, hands down, my favorite album of the decade. I was already a huge fan of them. This comes out in 2013. I was not really expecting to shift towards like more of a prog rock sound, and I heard it. I'm like, this is spectacular. Like, I didn't think metal could sound this good. This like just doing with that. Like, like, why didn't anybody do this before? How come this is the first time like somebody's doing this? Taking like Slayer and Eloy and like making it sound like it's the most natural thing in the world, like it should have been done years ago. But that's the telltale sign of a great artist and a great album. So this is a really, really, I cannot say enough good things about this band, but especially this album with its super fucking reflective cover. The other one, Agathis, I hold this if that's like a 10 out of 10. This is like a 9.999 out of 10. The only reason I put it down a little bit is just because I like the other one a little more. Same career trajectory. Started off as more black metal, and then they started to morph as they went along. I kind of also picked up on their second album, The Weaving Fates, from like 2002. And then they went from 2002 to 2016 with nothing. So these guys they work at their own pace. The same deal. This album went from like more black metal. Now they're bringing in a lot more prog as well. This album, the only difference is there's not as much like difference. Like that album, the Zemiel album, it's like thrash and then prog, and they kind of keep things separate but together. If you hear it, you'll know what I mean. These guys, this one kind of mixes it all together. And I should add too, the two brothers do play on each other's albums. So this album, Chris Dorian, he played on the Zemiel album. He does some lead guitar and some backing vocals. On the other way around, Demetrios on this album, way more active. He does all the drums and he plays a lot more of the instrumentation. So he's pretty active. So this is like a true like brotherly collaboration. Uh, This one gives me more of like a little epic heavy metal too. So if you like 80s metal, like Manila Road, Sirathungal, like Omen, like that kind of stuff, it has that feel to it. It's very grandiose, very big. Lyrically, these guys kind of deal with a lot of historical topics, kind of like Nocturnal Mortem, and it's like very, it just has like a bigness and like a grandiose sense to it. Very, very powerfully done. Great songwriting. Again, same both albums. The production is perfect. Like I don't think I could envision a better way to produce a metal album. It's nice, analog, warm, clear. The drums sound like $1 billion. Again, I use the comparison to 70s Rush because you hear those albums and you're like Neil's drums just sound perfect, and the production on them is so clear and so warm and like so like room filling. So it's great to hear metal albums, especially black metal, which doesn't always have the best production. Kind of take that path, but at this point with these two albums, these guys, I think a lot of the black metal, it's like only part of the stew. It's not like black metal with a little, now it's just like all these different things going on. A lot of prog still in here, a lot of like classic heavy metal, great vocals, great choruses, fantastic. I'm gonna say on both of these, fan fucking tastic lead guitar. I love the solos. Uh, yeah, it's just really good. And again, I could easily point to this and be like, this is my favorite album from the decade. And there was a bunch of others, but because we're picking two, and the tie between these two albums, I'm like, it's an easy choice. So if you like good heavy metal, if you like 70s prog with like a metal bent to it, if any of this sounds interesting to you, highly, highly recommended. It's Agatus the Eternalist and Zemil Nicta. So I've been fortunate to see Zemil a couple times. They play live more often. These guys do play, but very, very, very rare. Uh, I've never seen them. They're very high on my bucket list. I don't know if I'll ever get the chance because they'll play like one fest in Europe like every 5 years and like what show in like Romania, and that's it. And then they'll go back into hibernation. So if it happens, it happens. But yeah, Zemil, I've been fortunate to see probably like 7 or 8 times. I saw them earlier this year. Nick saw them at a different fest, and it blew a hole in my skull. They're always fucking great. They sound great. Unfortunately, Nick, when I talked to him, we didn't talk about you. I'm sorry, but yeah, it was sorry, buddy. But yeah, both of these albums are great. Easily two of my favorite bands from Greece, and if you're into Greek metal, there's a lot of really good bands from Greece over the decades. It's very creative hotspot for cool metal bands, black metal, regular metal, death metal. Just it's just been a great country for metal for a long time now, and kind of unsung too. I know other countries get a lot more of the publicity, which sucks because Greece has a lot to offer if you're into that stuff. And these two guys are whole discographies are great, but these albums are 10 out of 10, just fucking amazing. So there you go. Those are my two.
Ryan,
Yes, sir.
I got a question.
What up?
Is it me or all the black metal albums that have been released over the last 10 to 15 years are like 75% of them by one man bands?
No.
Feels that way. Every time I
but-
read a review, one man black metal band, one man black metal band.
I'd say like 30%.
Yeah, the prevalence of recording technology makes it a lot easier now than back in the day because you can just go into your you can do it all on your computer.
Right.
And because the recording production standards is lower, and it's also musically more like I almost say like punk rock, like you don't have to be a genius to play guitars, bass, and drums for a black metal band. It's all pretty simple. So it makes it more alluring. Like I want to be in a band. I'm not the greatest at any instrument, but I can kind of do a little of everything. Like what can I do? Well, I can't play like Rush, I can't do like, a Brahms symphony, but I can play black metal, I'm not going to say that's the reason, but there are a lot of them. And it's almost to the point like when I'm pointing this out, I'm like, this is pretty much a one-man black metal band-ish, but this is like, compositionally and, talent of music. Like this is like Rush. Like this guy can play on that level and does play on that level, which makes it rare because most bands don't go to that level, But I don't think a lot of musicians can play, you might be a good bassist, a good drummer, but could you play all of those instruments on that level? I don't know.
Exactly.
I know some people that can, but I want to say it's comparatively rare. This is an exception, but yeah, you're probably onto something that there's more of that than other genres of music for sure.
There's also
What's up?
what's common in black metal too is you'll have like separate scenes. Like I know that like the Finnish scene, and the Swiss scene, the new young Swiss scene that's coming up. You'll have like a group of guys and sometimes girls too that will play in several different bands together. So they'll
Oh,
help
they'll
each other
trade it,
out
yeah,
and stuff like
that's
that. But
true.
you'll have one guy that's like writing the music and then everyone will help them out because they have different specialties.
A lot
So,
of those bands, the one-man bands, they don't play live, which makes it even easier because you don't have to put together a live lineup. You can just
Well, it's a
bang it all
lot
out.
easier. It's a lot easier to do a one-man band in a studio than it is on stage, right?
Yeah, in both of these cases, these guys do play live and they've assembled full live bands, and the other guys that they
Yeah.
hire, are all obviously up to the task of playing it. But yeah, a lot of the
Yeah,
ones you're probably thinking of, they don't even play live. So it's like I can just write it, record it at my own pace, put it out, done.
And with Bandcamp, it's not the hardest thing to release an album, really.
That's the other thing. If you're just doing it digitally,
It doesn't even have to be, CD or vinyl. It can just be download. There you go.
put it up digitally. Yeah, it makes it easier.
Did that one yesterday. Go ahead, buy it.
Well, you guys have definitely piqued my interest. It seems like both your picks you had this prog metal pretty much, and it seems like for the last 20
Yes.
years or so, the stuff I like that's metal, it's got it's or the stuff I like that's prog, it tends to be the same bands, right? It says this that meeting in the middle. I love the mix of it. It's great.
I'll tell you, Scott, both of these bands do use harsh vocals, but
Yeah.
it's low. It's not. It's like if I could list harsh vocals.
Is it wall to wall harsh vocals?
Yeah, it's pretty acceptable. It's pretty.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the word mellow, but it's digestible. It's
Yeah.
very easy to understand, and they enunciate very clearly. More of these guys than these guys, but it's not like you're like, wow, you're not. It's not going to be off-putting. Where sometimes
Gotcha.
you hear that and you're like, it is off-putting, but I think when you hear the music and the warm production and the clarity of it, there's nothing about any of this is off-putting. And just the way they approach prog metal, where none of this sounds like 1% like Dream Theater, a band like that. They go a completely different path, which I think is kind of cool. They do prog metal, but yeah, it's like they really are doing it from their own direction. So
Nice.
I think you'd probably enjoy both of them, to be honest.
Cool.
All right. So, Alex, how was that beer? Shitty, huh?
That's a weird one.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's shitty.
Oh, you want to?
Next, it's the only thing I can drink that doesn't give me a hangover, as I've said in the past, and that's all that's in the house. So, what did you bring for us today?
Well, I will say smart too, because it's like 100 degrees. So I didn't actually. I just brought the sleeves because I didn't want to have the actual record.
Yeah. And go ahead, I'll be right back.
All right, sounds good. Well, I decided to go with sort of a bit of a theme that kind of a little bit feeds off of what Scott was talking about with Rush being the final album, and then also what Nick was talking about with being sad, dark, and depressing, because I think that's just great music all the time. And so my theme that I'm going with is two kind of classic, iconic artists that both got their start in the 60s and then released final albums that have sort of served as I don't know, a lot of their fans will rank them as high as sort of like the classic albums. And a lot of that is because both of these albums I'm going to show are like genuine, like we are dying and we know we are dying. And therefore we're going to release a record talking about us dying as like a parting gift to our fans. So some really happy stuff going on here. But the first one that I'm going to talk about, these both came out in 2016. This came out in January 2016. And of course it is David Bowie's Black Star, which would end up being his 26th album. So this came out on his birthday in early 2016. Out of nowhere, he didn't tell anybody that he was sick and dying of cancer. No one knew he was sick. It gets released again on his birthday in 2016. He ends up dying 2 days later. And so this musically is a combination of a lot of the art rock and experimental stuff that you were sort of used to in the very latter era Bowie stuff, like The Next Day and some of those records. But what makes this album different from a sonic standpoint is that they worked with like this jazz quartet out of New York City. And so this has like this very artsy, jazzy, atonal at times sort of approach to it that just adds to sort of the darkness and the theme of it. I mean, I remember when the music video for Lazarus, which one of my favorite tracks, probably my favorite track on the album, when that music video hit, people were like, "Oh, this is dark. Like this is not great."
Kind of like the Johnny Cash.
I was just thinking that the video for Hurt.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a tearjerker right there.
Made darker by the fact that he had just died.
Oh, it was brutal. I saw that. I'm like, fucking hell, this is miserable, but great. Sorry, great song though.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's cool that a lot of Bowie fans, myself included, like, will, include this in our top fives, our top tens, which, up there with like the Ziggy Stardust and the Hunky Doors and all that type of stuff. And so, again, because to me, and I'll talk about this in the next one too, the magic and the quality of it is in the darkness, right? Like that plays such a huge part in, it's not just, oh, I'm going to record an album because I'm, dying, but how that kind of bleeds into the actual art itself. So, I think Black Star 2016, a Bowie album that is needs to be heard, and I revisit this again just as much as I revisit some of those classic early 70s, mid 70s Bowie records. So that's first pick. And then certainly in the same camp, in fact, the same year, we're going to go up to Rick's home country here, and we're going to talk about Montreal's own Leonard Cohen in a very, very, very similar way. This was his last record called You Want It Darker, also in 2016. He released this and then died 17 days after it got released. And literally thematically in a very, very similar way of he was dying. He was confined to his living room with like multiple like spine fractures. He had cancer. That didn't stop him from smoking, obviously. And this idea was like, he recorded this in his living room because he couldn't go anywhere. He couldn't move, and then was like emailing files back and forth. Leonard Cohen, I think a lot of people would say is one of the greatest songwriters, one of the greatest lyricists and writers. He was never a singer. He never had a singing voice. What works with this record so much is that he's so old, he's so sick, it's so dark. He has like this super deep, raspy, like smoker's voice going on. It almost like lends itself almost to spoken word type stuff. And it just fits the mood so perfectly. I mean, the whole line of the title track, You Want It Darker, I'm Ready, My Lord. Like, it's very, very dark. It's very much again, kind of an ode. And although this was released in 2016 and he would end up passing away 17 days later, in 2019, this is sort of the companion piece called Thanks for the Dance, which is more tracks from that sort of period of writing. So they're kind of companion pieces, much in the same way. But it is, right. Zoom all.
There you go.
It just comes. They're all just black records. It's like, what do you think this means? But yeah, if you're into, this is not like I'm going to put this on to like, headbang and listen to sweet guitar solos or like 45-minute keyboard solos or anything like that. I mean,
we're not listening to this on the deck today.
We are not. No, we're listening to your Foreigner.
You bring clouds in if you do that.
All my shitty music I like to play.
Let's listen to Babies, But I mean, this is, you got to be in a certain headspace to really get into this, and it is dark, but it is absolutely artistically just beautiful and perfect. So yeah, those are my two sort of call outs. Two legends that were lost in the 2010s, and their final albums were just absolutely outstanding and compare up there with their absolute best. So Bowie and Leonard Cohen.
You know what those albums remind me of? About, I don't know, 12, 15 years earlier, Warren Zevon.
So The Wind would be the other one from Warren.
Remember Me When I'm Gone, or whatever that song is. Oh my God.
That's a brutal.
Yeah, the last track on that Warren Zevon record, which was 2005, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Keep Me in Your Heart.
God.
Oof.
It's rough.
Man.
He always had like a really good, like, sardonic sense of humor, Zevon, and that album is just dark as fucking pitch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Letterman, David Letterman, that was his favorite musical artist.
Yep.
I had a lot that I was trying to think of which ones to talk about, and I came up with two, but then I was like, you know what? Then I'm going to have to re-listen to them and make notes and then get into the songs. I'm like, what if I just did them all in 7 minutes and I don't even have to think about it, don't have to listen to it, and then I can just get it done and then start eating burgers and drinking beer. So I'm going to go in chronological order here from 2019 down. I gave Karen this to listen to on our album homework assignment, and she thought it was too clean sounding. But when I want to listen to doom metal, I go to Funeral Fuck a lot, Cardinal Confessions. I still play the hell out of that from 2019. This came out in 2019 as well, and every first day of fall since I play it, it's a little tradition, and I love making up my own traditions. Cadaver, For the Dead Travel Fast. I mean, it just screams fall. The cover and the music. Going down to 2019 as well. One of the best reggae albums I ever heard is by a guy nobody knows, Mighty Mystic, Into the Mystic. Sounds roots reggae, but modern at the same time. It's a fucking party. Going 1 year earlier to 2018, again, one of my favorite reggae albums of all time. And that includes all the greats, Marley and Peter Tosh. Ziggy Marley, Rebellion Rises. Every song on this is a banger. Saw him on tour, and when he did those songs, it was great. 2018, Horrendous. I love Idol. I love Idol so much. This is death metal that is also easy to digest. It has there's an airiness about it, which makes it go down easy. That's my CD that's signed. This is my black vinyl, and that's my green vinyl of that. Still listen to it all. This is one of the biggies, guys. Bell Witch, Mirror Reaper. This is a modern day classic in the genre of doom. It's I love the vinyl, how it's hard to tell what side is A, B, C, and D, because it almost doesn't matter. The music is a circle, and it really doesn't matter where you come in on the circle. You just come in and just go around and around. So it doesn't matter if you start with side C and then end up on side B. It doesn't matter. Love this. And I love to start my days off listening to that, drinking coffee out of my Bell Witch coffee mug. Chemist, Hunted. One of my favorite modern day metal albums. This vinyl came out in 2016. I had maybe 75 vinyl records when I bought this. I bought this on vinyl. It was the first new album I ever bought on vinyl. So how many years later is it now? 9? Holy fuck. I got like close to 3,000 vinyls. This is the one that started it all. Love that. The title track is unbelievable. Let's go old school. Book of Souls by Maiden. I still revisit Book of Souls.
As you should.
Yeah, it's great.
Great.
Man. I'm going to tell you right now, Mastodon, Crack the Sky is probably their best album. I won't argue. It's a great album and their best. But which one do I play the most? Once Around the Sun.
Permission.
It's a banger, man. It's a banger. It's so accessible. It's great. And I can listen to that one with the wife, and she likes it. Scott, you mentioned Steven Wilson.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Raven That Refused to Sing is great. Hand Cannot Erase is great. But you know what? I almost went with those two. But you know what? I love the songs on To the Bone. I love this.
It's a little bit of a departure for
I love the songs. Pariah was my sister's wedding song. If you can believe that.
I mean, I wouldn't rank it as high as those others, but it's way better than Future Bites. I'll tell you that.
My favorite elder, my go-to elder, that came out in 2012 is Dead Roots Stirring, and their Nick, lead guitarist and singer, signed it for me when I saw him. Not at the show we were at, the show prior to that show at Ace of Cups. If you like new wave, kind of like Blondie and stuff, there's a band that came out at the end of the 80s called Metric, and Synthetica is a great, fun album in that new wave kind of way. I've seen them live a couple times. They were great. They do a song with Lou Reed on here that's super cool. One of the last things Lou Reed ever recorded was the duet on this album. The Sword, I always fuck this up. Apocryphon. I don't fucking know. I don't know. Apple Spritz. There's my signed copy.
I think I say Apocryphon.
Right.
I like Apple Spritz.
Yeah, I love the riffs on this. I love the songs. Yeah, I love the keyboards that they introduce into some of the songs. It really super cool album that stayed with me since 2012-ish. Yeah, 2012. Yeah. This is a big one. This might be my number one. Witchcraft Legend. This album makes doom occult rock fun. They blend occult rock, doom rock, and arena rock into something that is just fucking magical. They never did an album before it like this. They never did an album after it. They will never do another album after it. So catchy. Again, another album I can play with the wife. When I play, it's not because of you. Oh, when me and Grace are hanging out, that brings down the house. Right when the first opening notes come on, Grace goes, whoa! Because
I want to listen to all these.
Boombox. Danzig. If I don't want to listen to 1, 2, 3, or 4, the other albums, but I will grab Death Red Sabbath.
Sabuth.
Yeah, which is really hard to find on CD now. If I knew that back in 2010 when I bought this, I probably would have kept better care of it. So, but it's in a bag now, so it's kind of fucked up, but it's not going to get any more fucked up. And then also from 2010, Murder by Death, Good Morning, Magpie, which is like gothic country drinking music about ghosts and westerns and drinking and dying and all kinds of cool, depressing things. And they just released they're on their final tour and they released their final album. So they said, but I mean, they're like 44 years old, and the lead singer and the cello player, they're married. So in that house songs will be written. So who knows for sure, but the celloist is it celloist or cellist? Cellist. I'm glad you're here. Cellist. I had a crush on her when this album came out, and I've seen him a bunch of times, but she plays beautifully on all the Murder by Death albums. So there, I ran through them pretty quick.
Damn.
So
impressive, sir.
Out today.
Thanks for having me.
Did you bring your bathing suit?
Of course I did.
All right. We're going to be drunk in the pool. I got margarita mix. I got tequila. I got shitty beer. I got White Claws. Oh, tomorrow's a sleep-in day. Sleep all day. I see that happening. So with that, don't forget to check us out on the web. Oh, we're wrapping things up. I could almost taste the burgers. Don't forget to check us out on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. All together, all the damn time.
All the damn time.
On Instagram now. He's getting with it on Instagram. I don't even know what the fuck you do on Instagram. I thought it was just like posting pictures. Maybe it's just pictures of us on Instagram. I have no fucking clue. Hit the notification bell. Don't knock over the thing. Hit the notification bell so you get alerted as programs as episodes as they drop, and hit the like button. Come on, we're sweating our asses off here. Hit the like button and give to the Ko-fi account. Give a couple bucks, and we're sweating our asses off here. Give to the Cameo, and Pete will invite you over to his deck, and you guys can do a show together on his deck and go swim in his pool.
And drink shitty beer.
Maybe you can do a show with him and Martin in the fun house. You and Pete on Pete's deck. They tape that show at 4:30 in the morning. Never mind on that. And so for Rick, for Nick, for Scott, for Ryan, for this guy here on my deck, we did it on the deck. We're doing it on the deck with Alex Dudek.
That's right.
What do you think of that? I don't know. And for Jamie, until the next show in 2 weeks, when we have different reviews and a different crew, we're out, guys.